What's up everyone and happy Easter. Welcome to the video. We're here breaking down the Food City Dirt Race at Bristol Motor Speedway on Sunday, April 9th around 7 p.m. Eastern. And that's right, we're going dirt track racing under the lights for what should be a pretty fun race. Now, if you are like me, I am in the camp of we should never throw dirt on Bristol. Let's do it to a different track because Bristol in itself produces some of the absolute best racing. In my opinion, it's the best track, and there's a reason it's on the wall behind me. I love Bristol. It's a great track, and it's a shame that we're losing a regular race for this. I think we should at least add a race so we can get the two Bristol races. So it's unfortunate, but from a fan standpoint, I'm going to enjoy watching this video. Now, from a projection standpoint, from playing DFS, fantasy, betting, whatever it may be a little bit careful this week. We did lose 2 practice sessions on Friday due to rain, so we have even limited track time than we were going to already because we only had 2 races here, and it's really hard to draw a huge sample size from that. So I would err on the side of caution this weekend, maybe play a little bit less. I won't lie to you guys. If it's going to be a tougher week to project out, I will let you know. But anyway, if this is your first time here, what's up? My name is Chris Pennell. I break down NASCAR DFS each and every single week on this channel. You can also find me live on Sunday mornings, typically. Although since the race is at 7 p.m. Eastern this weekend, and everyone's going to be busy with their Easter lunch, dinner, whatever you want to call it, I'm thinking 5 p.m. on Sunday is probably a good time to go for it. So I'll let you guys do whatever you want to do early in the day, and hopefully you guys can come in and say hi later on in the evening. And also, if you guys do enjoy today's free content, you guys can do me one small thing in return. Leave a like on the video, subscribing to the channel if you are new, and feel free to leave a comment down below. Being nice, being mean, wish me happy Easter. I don't really care either way, but I'd love to hear from you. All right, so getting to the strategy portion of this video, gonna be a bit tough this week because we have very limited data, and I'm a data-driven person. I don't like to go off a gut instinct. I just look at the numbers, what they tell me, and I paint a picture for you all from what I see. So it's going to be a bit tougher this week because, like I said, I think I said this earlier, we did lose practice. We had 2 sessions scheduled. Unfortunately, that got rained out. Now, we do have the heat races later on tonight, and if that doesn't get rained out, at least we'll see who's fast in some of the heat races, which is at least something to look at. But outside of that, for what I'm factoring into my model this weekend, those of you on Patreon know what I'm talking about. I'm looking at the 2 Bristol dirt races. I'm looking at how fast they've been this year overall because, I mean, they got to have speed in their cars overall this season. And then I'm looking at a little bit of Bristol and Dover, which I know might not make the most sense in the world, but we have seen some guys that are good at tracks like that, like Bristol, like Dover, have had some speed here at Bristol Dirt. Because once these guys run a lot of laps, you know, it's going to be easier to drive on. And maybe that's when you see guys like a Joey Logano who's good at Bristol, or a Alex Bowman who's good at Dover, than a Truex, which we've seen those guys run well in the past here. So looking at that, I think it's a fine way to go, and also looking at guys that have a lot of dirt experience, like Ricky Stenhouse, Kyle Larson, Christopher Bell. You guys get the idea there. So that's kind of what I'm looking at. And we also have 250 laps on the schedule, which is a decent amount. It's not a ton. It's not like 400 like we had last week at Richmond, but you're going to want some lap leaders in your lineup. And we will probably lose a decent amount of cars during this race. I'm not thinking it's going to lose half the field Daytona style, but I'm sure some guys are going to wreck out. So some place differential mixed in probably won't be the worst idea in the world, but we'll get a better idea after the heat races take place later on this evening. And finally, moving on to the driver-by-driver breakdown portion here, I do have to mention a couple things first. So first off, if you want to join the best NASCAR DFS community out there, links down below in the description or the pinned comment for that. We got a couple hundred people over there, and the Discord's active 24/7 if you want to hop in. It's always a good time, but tons of extra content over there. So if you enjoy the free stuff on YouTube, there's a lot more over on the Patreon, projections for all sites, the simulation scores, sim score sheet, which is what I look at each and every single week. I got the betting model on there, do my weekly articles going over cash games, tournaments, got the prop model, and a lot more. All the data you'd ever need, color code nice and neat, so it's quite easy to follow. I do cover other sports as well, including baseball, each and every single day if you're interested in that. Like I said, links down below in the description or the pinned comment. All right, so the heat races just ended, so we now have our qualifying order, and like I said earlier, it was kind of nice to watch the heat races because at least it gives us an idea of who has some decent cars, at least within those 15 laps in those heat races. So if you're wondering how the qualifying order actually took place, so there was 4 separate heat races, and they kind of did some DraftKings scoring where they implemented some place differential points mixed in with finishing position points, and that's how they spit out the order, and it was all the heats combined with the points. So it spit out Kyle Larson up front. So, I mean, the Dirt King, the odds-on favorite, he's starting on the pole. Well, not super surprised here, especially given the heat that he was in. Now, these odds are not completely up to date. This was before the heat races, and I feel like some of these are going to change, but they have not yet posted the new lines, so I cannot import them for you guys. But anyway, let's try to break this down as best as we possibly can. Like I said, we have very limited data, only 2 Bristol dirt races, so gonna be a bit tougher this week, but we'll try to do our best. All right, so let's start up top with the man, Kyle Larson, 10,900 on DraftKings, 14K. Over on FanDuel, he's on the poll for reasons I gave earlier. He's the odds-on favorite, and once they post new lines, I feel like that is going to go down. Maybe we see that at plus 450, plus 500, something like that. But I feel like they'll at least improve a little bit for Kyle Larson. So if you're looking to bet him, well, that kind of probably lost any value that you would have had, although I wasn't showing any value either way because that's kind of short. But on the DFS side of things, it's going to be hard not to like Kyle Larson here. I know a lot of people are going to be enamored with place differential, which I get it. There's some pretty big names here with place differential. I don't have to list them. You can see them on the screen in the red shades in the qualifying column. But yeah, there's a lot of place differential to be had. But at the same time, I mean, they might just not have the best speed. Now, this could be a race where we see lots of guys spin. Guys can get wrecked out, so those place differential guys don't even have to be that fast. They just have to stay alive, and they'll gain you 10, 15 spots. And then when you know they're in the optimal with those price points, so as you can see, they're all in pretty fine price points. But Kyle Larson, he should be really strong throughout this entire race. Now, Ryan Preece was catching him in that heat, and it sounded like in his interview after he wasn't super excited about his car. And he wasn't a very weak heat, so we have to keep that in mind. But this is Kyle Larson on dirt. There's a reason he's the favorite, and he should be good in this race. And the one thing we have is no live pit stops, which means when they do have to pit, no one can lose their position. So he's got pretty good track position to work with. And we saw in the heat races, track position was pretty big. And also he doesn't have the ability to lose any spots on pit road if he comes in first because they're not live. So you can't gain or lose spots, which is another plus for Kyle Larson because I would assume he's going to lead until we see the first yellow flag. Now, I'm not sure when that's going to be. But last year, I believe they ran 55 laps without getting a spin or a caution. They did have the competition caution. But if Kyle Larson could lead a good chunk of this race and then finish within the top 5, that's not bad at all. I'm not saying it's a complete clear path to optimal, but he's definitely in a really good spot to dominate. And we do have 250 laps, so those dominator points are going to add up a bit. Not as much as regular Bristol, where we'd have like 400, 500 laps, but they will add up. Now, if we're looking at the track history at the Bristol Dirt Race, so if we're looking at the model this week, we have the 2 Bristol Dirt Races here for the recent track history. And then for the 6 race sample size, we have the dirt races. We have, I believe, some actual regular Bristol races and Dover mixed in. Then we have the 4 races, non-super speedways and road courses so far this season. So that's what we're working with. It's a bit of a mess, but it's really the only thing we had to look at. But for Kyle Larson, I mean, Hendrick's had the best cars all year. Kyle Larson's been fast each and every single week at every single track type, so I have no reason to believe why he won't be good. Now, I have not yet run projections. The heat races literally just ended, and I uploaded the qualifying orders, so I can't tell you as far as if I'm going to go there in cash games or tournaments yet or not. We can kind of discuss that in the live stream on Sunday evening. But as of right now, I assume Larson's going to be one of my best projected plays, and he'll probably project out as the winner for me. So, yes, I like Larson. The question is, do we play him in cash or not? And that'll be decided later on tomorrow or tonight when I run my projections in the model. Because we have some other very good drivers that should contend for the lead here, and they actually offer some place differential upside, like Tyler Reddick, like Christopher Bell, Chase Briscoe. So I can't say Kyle Larson's a cash game lock or anything, because if he happens to get past early on and finish 4th, that's not going to get the job done at that price point. All right, so moving down to Tyler Reddick, $10,700, 13,000 over on FanDuel. He is starting in 6th. Opened up with the second best odds to win this race. Looked like he had a pretty strong car in the first heat race, and let me tell you, that first heat race was absolutely loaded with studs. You had Ricky Stenhouse Jr., Christopher Bell, Tyler Reddick, Austin Dillon, and a couple other guys I feel like I'm forgetting. Did I mention Alex Bowman? But yeah, very good field there. But in the 2 Bristol Dirt races, Tyler Reddick, very good, averaging the most DraftKings points per race, the most FanDuel points, the best average finish of 4.5, or excuse me, the second best average finish, only behind Joey Logano, one of the best running positions, the second best drive rating in the top 10 each time, and a good chunk of laps led. And he should have won this race last year until Chase Briscoe got him at the end and kind of, well, didn't really kill Tyler Reddick's race, but it killed Briscoe's. And then Kyle Busch ended up stealing the win. So Tyler Reddick, I mean, that's one of the reasons where I can't say Kyle Larson's a complete lock, because Reddick should be equally as good, and he offers you 5 more extra PD spots, and he's a bit cheaper. So I love Tyler Reddick in all formats. Christopher Bell, another good dirt guy. He gained some spots in that first heat race, and we know he's going to be a contender. Hasn't really had the best luck yet at the dirt races. Wrecked in the first one, and then last year he did finish in the top 10, but he should bring a lot of speed. We know he has a ton of dirt experience. There's a reason he's expensive, but I do like him. Chase Briscoe, 10,200 bucks. I like his price point on FanDuel. He's going to be really easy to get to at only $11,000. He's starting in 14th, and while he doesn't have any top 5s, top 10s, not even a top 15, he had a very good car last year. Ended up, him and Tyler Reddick got into it at the end, so it killed his finish. I want to say he finished like, I don't know, somewhere around 20th place, but he's been a dominator here. He's been able to get up fast laps, and I think Chase Briscoe is definitely going to be a contender here. So on FanDuel, I love him, and even on DraftKings at 10-2, starting in 14th. If Larson, Reddick, Bell make any mistakes starting closer to the front, Briscoe at least has a safety net starting in 14th. Then William Byron, 10,000 bucks, 12.5 on FanDuel. He's starting in 9th. I think he's a fine tournament option. These other guys are known for really their dirt prowess. William Byron, not so much. He's an iRacer, but did have a top 10 last year at the Bristol Dirt Race, and we know how strong he's been all season long. Him and Kyle Larson have had the best cars, and William Byron's been a contender just about everywhere. Wasn't really at Auto Club, but he was fast early on in that race. But I think Byron should be fine here. Looked really good in the second heat race, I believe that was, with Ryan Blaney. And Chase Briscoe passed a couple guys, couldn't quite get Briscoe or Blaney, but he did look pretty fast, and after a while, I feel like he could have got there. So I do like William Byron as a nice tournament play. I don't think his ownership will be higher than a guy like Briscoe, just because he's known for what he can do at the track like this, starting in 14. So I think Byron's a fine tournament play. And then you also have Joey Logano in the 9K range, who's been really good at Bristol Dirt so far, who's a little bit cheaper and a couple more PD spots. So I think Byron makes sense for a nice pivot in tournaments. And speaking of Logano, I think he's a fantastic play, starting in 12th. He's one of those guys where he's not known for dirt, but another reason why I'm kind of throwing in some Bristol numbers and things like that is because he's really good at Bristol, and once this track, these guys run a lot of laps on there, that's when he can shine. He won the first Bristol Dirt Race. He's finished in the top 5 each time. He has the best driver rating here, the best average running position, an average finish of 2nd, which is insane. He's also been a dominator, so I think Logano's certainly in play. Kyle Busch, 9,700 bucks. He's starting in 5th, last year's winner, although keep in mind, he should not have won that race. I realize anything can happen at the end of a dirt race because things can get crazy. But that was definitely Tyler Reddick's race, and it was unfortunate, but Kyle Busch stole the win there. Starting in 5th, I'll have a tougher time getting to him over guys like Logano and Blaney personally because of the extra PD spots. But Busch should be fine. I mean, he's definitely a contender to win. I just like the extra PD with Blaney and Logano, but Busch should definitely be in your pool. And I hate to keep saying I like all these guys, but I mean, there's a reason they're expensive. They're certainly in play, but there's going to be some guys we don't like as well. We have Ryan Blaney, 9,500 bucks, 10.5 on FanDuel. He's starting in 10th. Like I said, I would prefer him over Kyle Busch just because you get the extra PD spots. And Ryan Blaney, he's actually been pretty good at the Bristol Dirt Race in the top 10 each time. And he's another driver that is really good at Bristol. And the one thing going Blaney's way this weekend is, again, no live pit stops. And he is an absolute disaster on pit road every single week. And we were talking about this in the Discord, but we kind of figured out Ryan Blaney. Stage 1, he'll run good. He'll be fast. He'll probably be a top 10 guy, maybe towards the front. And all things will look well. And then he'll have a bad pit stop. And then stage 2 comes, he'll have a penalty. They'll leave something in his car and will destroy his race. And then he'll chip his way back in stage 3. And then there will be something that happens that ruins his chipping away. And then somehow we'll finish like 8th or 10th place. That's the Ryan Blaney storybook on this season. It seems like it happens each and every single week. But for Blaney here at 9,500 bucks, fine play. Price point's not terrible, and like I said, the numbers aren't bad for Blaney. And if you're looking at similar track history, Bristol Dirt Races and somewhat similar tracks, I mean, they're not that bad. So I think Blaney's fine. More so of a tournament play here, just because if you're trying to jam in these studs, it's gonna be really hard to get another 9K guy in, plus some of these place differential plays. So pretty much this, I would say, Chastain to probably Byron range is gonna be the tournament way to go. Just because I feel like people are going to jam in some of these dirt guys, and then you're kind of running out of salary after that. Again, though, I have that ran projections, so I don't know what the sims look like, and I could be wrong, but I feel like that's my first instinct on that. Ross Chastain, 9,300 bucks. He's starting at 17th. The price looks good, and the starting spot doesn't look too bad, so I think the ownership's going to be there, and I think people are going to want to play Ross because of dirt race, and he's a wild man, so people might just correlate the two. But so far for dirt races, it's not gone Ross Chastain's way. Average finish at 34th, running position of 27.4, and the driver rating's putrid at 44.8. I realize wrecking out, you can't completely fault him against that. I guess he's due for a good race, but being due for something does not mean that you're actually going to do well. So Ross, like projection-wise, it's not going to look terrible because he's going to be projected for more than likely around a 12th, 14th place finish. But I would rather get the Blaney personally. I'd rather get the Busch, Joey Logano. I think at least in tournaments, if the ownership's going to be lower. And even Denny Hamlin, he's starting about double the spots further back and he's cheaper. So I don't think I'm going to get to a ton of Ross. Denny Hamlin, 9,100 bucks, 9,500 on FanDuel. He's starting in 30th. He's going to project very well, so the ownership's going to be high. And he did finish top 5 at one of the dirt races. I believe last year he wrecked out, so it must have been the first one. I can't remember it offhand. I believe it was the first one, though. So starting in 30th, it's going to be hard not to like him. He was not fast in his heat race, but I don't think he's going to be a 30th place car, assuming he doesn't wreck. So Hamlin, he's definitely going to be very chalky playing cash games. So tournaments, maybe if you want to get away from him, I get it, because you have guys like Stenhouse who should be lower owned, starting in 22nd, and even a guy like Blaney. But Hamlin's definitely a cash play. Then we have our old pal Ricky Stenhouse here, which usually for Ricky, this is an absurd price tag, but at a dirt race, this is actually pretty fair for Stenhouse. He's definitely going to be a contender here. And I know he's already got a win under his belt, so it's not the same as where he'd have to go all out to get a win here to secure the playoffs, because he has no chance at really any other track besides super speedways. But he won at Daytona, so don't really have to worry about that. But I do think Stenhouse is in line for a pretty good race here. They know that this is one of the tracks where they actually got a shot here, so I assume they're going to have some of their best stuff. And I like that price point on FanDuel. He's going to be chalky over there at only 7,500 bucks, but I like him on either site here. He's always been pretty solid at the steep track, so Ricky's definitely fine on my books. Martin Truex Jr., 8,700 bucks, starting in 27th. I loved him in that first Bristol dirt race. I believe he was just killing it in the truck race, and he was fast in practice. So I'm like, well, Truex, I didn't really peg him as a good play heading into the week, but I adjusted my stance on him, and he was running very well. I believe he ended up having an issue at the end of the race, but as you can see, averaging 63 laps led in 2 race sample size here. So Truex is capable. He's also pretty good at Dover if you're looking for the steeper track. I'm not trying to say, look at all the Dover numbers, look at all the Bristol numbers, and throw them for Bristol, that's how they're going to run. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just trying to grasp for some data points to at least somewhat look at. But he was good in that first Bristol dirt race. But starting all the way back in 27th, I mean, it's going to pick up ownership, which does worry me at a track like this where we could have some high degree of variance and randomness. So, I mean, yes, he's going to project well, just be careful. But cash games, yes, he's fine. Alex Bowman, 8,500 bucks. That guy, I think Bowman's a really nice pivot off of guys like Martin Truex Jr. is going to have ownership. Like guys, Kevin Harvick, where maybe they just kind of are stuck back there. Maybe they don't have a ton of speed, and, you know, they're 2 older guys. They might just be old and grumpy and not really want to care about this race too much, especially Kevin Harvick, so it's another thing to keep in mind. But Bowman 16th, I mean, he has dirt experience. He owns, I believe, a dirt late model team, and I mean, he's in a Hendrick car who's going to have a ton of speed, and he doesn't have a top 10 here. So I think Alex Bowman's a fine tournament play, 8,500 bucks, and he's someone I'm looking to pivot to because he is sandwiched right in between all of the place differential plays. Like, not just in the 8K range. I mean, right above in the 9K range, you have Denny Hamlin. Then right below him in the 7K range, you have Buescher, Barry, Keselowski, all starting around 30th place. So if you're looking for the pivot at low ownership, because everyone's going to play all the place differential, guys, look at Alex Bowman. Do not forget about him. I'm hoping that ownership is really low. Kevin Harvick, 8,300 bucks. He's starting in 26th. Kind of throwing him in the same boat as Truex. Like, he's old, probably a little bit grumpy, not really sure how much he cares about the gimmicky race of Bristol dirt. And as you can see so far, he hasn't had the best success here. Did have a top 15. If he gets a top 15, 300 bucks starting at 26, that's not a bad day. I believe he racked out early on last year. So I'm okay with Harvick. I mean, Bristol's not a bad track for him, but once you throw dirt on it, it definitely changes the dynamics. So I'm not completely out on Harvick. I'm just saying there's pivots we can get to. Daniel Suarez, 8,100 bucks. He's starting in 34th. Now, he actually has a really good history at Bristol dirt so far. Has a top 5, but in the top 15 each time, and even dominated one of the races. And I realized the heat race did not go that well for him. He actually ended up spinning out at one point, but starting all the way back in 34th, another guy where you're going to have a really hard time passing on in cash games. Dropping down to the 7K range. Some more place differential plays for you. Chris Buescher, 700 bucks. He's starting at 28. He's been in the top 15 both Bristol dirt races. Hard not to at least have some interest there starting all the way back in 28. I'd love to tell you more, but that's really all we got to look at for Buescher. I mean, fine PD play if he doesn't wreck. He'll probably gain you at least around 10 spots. Josh Berry, 7,700 bucks. He's starting in 31st. He took a spin in the heat race, which, yeah, that's a little concerning. But he's in a Hendrick car, starting in the 30s. Same boat as Chris Buescher, same boat as all these place differential plays. If they don't wreck, they're more than likely going to gain spots because there's some other drivers that I don't think are going to be as good as them starting ahead of them. Brad Keselowski, starting all the way back in 33rd. Another guy in the top 15 each and every single Bristol dirt race. Also pretty good at Bristol. I mean, again, same boat as Chris Buescher. Their teammates a little bit cheaper. These are fine cash game plays. Dropping down to someone that is somewhat tournament viable, but going to be very risky starting all the way up top in second. Also, apologize for the black lines. I don't usually record at night, but the lighting is not playing well with the green screen here. But Austin Dillon, we know he's been working on dirt, And starting all the way up in second, he held off some pretty good cars in that heat race. So I will give him that. But man, starting in second with all of those place differential plays, you basically need Austin Dillon to dominate at some point, pick up fast laps, and finish in the top 5. That's a very tough task. I'm not saying it's not possible. It is. But the chances of that happening compared to these place differential plays being optimal over him are pretty slim. So just adjust that in your exposures. I don't think Austin Dillon's a complete fade or anything, but I would definitely have way more exposure on some of those place differential plays than I would Austin Dillon. But Wallace, he won his heat race. It was kind of a weak one. I think Logano was in there and Kyle Busch, but Bubba ended up winning. He also won in Eldora way back when in the truck race, so it's not like he's complete garbage in dirt. But in the 2 Bristol dirt races so far, I mean, hasn't sniffed the top 20, average finish at 27.5. Running position's been better though at 15.6. He's a tournament play if you're just trying to get off the chalky plays, Keselowski, Buescher, Suarez, those kind of guys. So I wouldn't completely cross him off, but I'm not in love with it. Now, Ryan Preece might be one of the better tournament plays for real because he was gaining on Kyle Larson in that one heat race. Again, very weak field, but Preece looked pretty good. He's starting in 8th. I think he said the only dirt experience he has is riding his wife's horses. So I'm not really sure how to factor that into the model, but yeah, he said it, so that's really all we got. But I don't hate Preece. Again, though, chances of him being optimal over some of these place differential plays are slim, but the ownership's going to be a lot lower, so that's what makes him appealing in tournaments. Dropping down to the 6K range, we have Justin Haley starting all the way back in 25th. Fine, like if you have like around $7,000 left and he's your last fit, I have no problem with Justin Haley. Ty Gibbs at $6,700. He's starting in 23rd. Got the 999 Juice World finishes in a row there. So congrats to him. He had a rough start to the year, but the finishes have been there for him recently. And I know Atlanta and Coda could have been a bit random there, and he definitely was not a top 10 car at Coda. But Richmond should have good runs, so shout out to Ty Gibbs there. I'm impartial on him. Whatever the optimizer gives me, I'll take it, but I don't think it's going to be too much because there's a lot of good cars behind him that are more likely going to pass him. Davenport, really like the only ringer here. He's starting in 21st. Ran well in his heat race. Not the worst play, but I would prefer Justin Haley, I think, versus a couple dollars more. But Davenport, he's in the player pool at least. And he opened up with better odds than guys like Michael McDowell, Ty Gibbs, Justin Haley. He's also in the 13 car for colleagues, so it's not like he's in a complete junker this week. And we saw Chandler Smith driving that to a top 20 last weekend. Michael McDowell, he's starting in 13th, $6,400, 58 on FanDuel. I don't like the starting spot. He does have 2 top 15s here, though, and a top 10 at Bristol Dirt, so I don't think we can cross him off. Again, just one of those guys, whatever the optimizer gives me, I will take it. I really wish we had practice data to look at just to know, like, does he have a lot of speed? Well, we're kind of in the dark. I mean, obviously the heat race went well for him since he's starting near the front, but I'm okay with McDowell. He's a tournament play, but that's about it. All I can say, really. Almendinger, $6,300. He's starting in 29th. We have no Bristol Dirt experience. And obviously, judging how he qualified, heat race didn't really go that well either for him. So he's a PD play back there. But honestly, I don't mind the pivots to guys like McDowell, Davenport, who probably will have a bit more speed during the race. Eric Almirola, $6,100, starting in 19th. He finally did not fail us last week. He ran very well fantasy point-wise. But his Bristol Dirt experience so far has not gone well. Average running position of around 30th. Average finish right there with it. So I don't really see a reason to want to roster Eric Almirola. Eric Jones does have a top 10, but you're only playing him if you need the salary savings. Starting in 18th, he could be a top 15 contender. But the only reason I'm saying that is because it's Eric Jones and he's got more name power than some of these guys down there. But I mean, again, we don't have much data to look off of. Average running position of 17th in the 2 dirt races. Average finish of 15th or 16th. Like, it's okay. It could be worse, but it could also be better. Austin Cindric starting in 7th. He is really cheap, but I just don't have much any interest here. I think he's only going to lose spots. Noah Gregson's starting just about dead last, only in front of BJ McLeod, but my goodness, he has just not been good this year whatsoever, and he has 1 race at Bristol Dirt, and he had an average running position of 30th, and he finished 27th. So it's hard to get too excited about Gregson, but if you need a cheap play in the back, it's appealing just because as long as he doesn't rank out early on, he's going to gain spots. Harrison Burton, that'll be a pass for me. Todd Gilliland, I think he won't be terrible in this race. Did finish 17th here before, but the problem is for where he's starting, the upside is very, very limited. Ty Dillon finished top 10 at Bristol Dirt. He does have a 2-race sample size, average finish of 18th. His car has been awful this year, but maybe it can survive at Bristol Dirt. But I'd rather play Corey LaJoie, to be honest. I think starting all the way back in 35th, he's only $5,000. I realize the history from a Bristol Dirt hasn't been great so far, but this year he's just been the king of kind of holding his ground. Now, that's with starting higher than 35th. I think he's going to gain his spot. So Ty Dillon, Corey LaJoie, pretty much similar plays, but LaJoie is going to predict a little bit better, starting 3 spots further back. JJ Yeley, it is a darn shame he got put in the worst heat because that led to him running very well and starting in 3rd, which basically makes him unplayable. Now, the problem is, Yaley could be a guy that contends for a top 15, sure, but starting all the way in 3rd, it's going to be tough to overcome 12 spots lost for place differential points when guys like LaJoie and Ty Dillon can gain like 10 to 15. And I don't think they're going to finish as high as JJ Yaley. But again, the safety net that they offer you compared to Yaley, because if he ends up having an issue, he's going to absolutely nuke your lineup. Matt Crafton's in for Cody Ware. He's going to be starting 24th. I don't believe we have a price yet. I probably should have checked right before this, but that news came out late. So I'm assuming DraftKings did not post it. But I think Cody Ware was like $4,800. So assuming he gets added to the player pool, should be someone around there, but I just don't have any interest. And then BJ McLeod, you can't pay me to play him. But with that being said, guys, that's all I got for the video. So I hope you did enjoy. And if you did, make sure you leave a like down below. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet done so. Wishing you all a very happy Easter. I will see you on the live stream Sunday around 5 p.m. Eastern. Don't forget to check out the sponsors of the show, Prize Picks and Underdog, and promo code CPEN will get you an instant deposit match bonus up to $100 and all the extra content. Link down below in the description for the Patreon. But that's it. I'll get out of here. I wish you all the best of luck, and I'll see you all next time.